Welcome to Big Questions with Dan Lakendro and Lou White. I'm Lou, and I want to show you what we're going to talk about today. This says mental psychosis. A mental psychosis, what is that? Well, I'm going to expand on that and call it sacramental psychosis. Okay? So, Dan, you want me to define what a psychosis is?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and define that so that people can get a better understanding.
Okay, folks, on the left of your screen there is Dan Lakendro. You got to send me a new picture. They're going to think you're wearing the same shirt, Dan.
Yeah, I have to.
Yeah. Anyway, a psychosis. Let's see. This is the clinical definition. All right. Watch out. Here it comes. It's defined as a loss of contact with reality, and usually includes false beliefs about what is taking place, or one who is deluded, seeing and hearing things that aren't really there, hallucinations, ideas that are in their heads that are not real. Well, that sounds like religion, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah, that's so silly. When a person realizes that belief is actually something that you outwardly show as evidence of who you serve, then suddenly all these things that people do with their waving hands and sticking up crosses and things and putting bodies on them, unbelievable stuff.
Yeah.
Steeples. It's hard to explain.
Well, I think what people want to do is they want to fit in, and wherever there's more people that act the same way, they feel more comfortable. It's to not stand out and be different, not to be like everyone else is kind of like a bad thing in today's society. But yeah, we're commanded by Scripture to be salt, and when salt loses its saltiness, what good is it?
Yes. This one book that I'm holding in my hand, I quoted that out of, is a book called Strong Delusion, and it's Christianity's institutionalized witchcraft. Now, witchcraft is any kind of rebellion against the Creator and His instructions. The foundation is shifted because they don't think that the Ten Commandments exist. It's as if they never were given. Sinai never happened. You know. Yeah, but like we were talking about in our last program, and I hope we keep repeating this, what is the renewed covenant? Well, it's the renewed covenant in His blood, which replaces permanently and completely any need for any more redemption from sins, because the old covenant is not the Ten Commandments. It's the priesthood. That's what, if you just look at Hebrews 8, anybody can read it.
That's correct, yeah.
The priesthood. So we're not... the priesthood is the old covenant. It's the
that's what was done away with. And the thing is with the modern translations of Scripture, the word priesthood isn't in there. The word covenant is used, and that's misleading.
That's it, yeah. The Aharonic covenant for how to atone for sin. And all those procedures, it was so much work, not just for the person that was offering the animals and the food, but the priests that accepted it. It was an army of priests that had an entire tribe was in attendance to handle the high festivals. But the high festivals are shadows of our redemption, so the people that reject those don't understand them because they're not looking at them, and they think that's the priesthood. But Yahuah says, these are my Shabbats. They're His Sabbaths, as He calls them. And the first one is, of course, that weekly, every seventh day we rest, which Hebrews 4 says there still remains a Sabbath rest. You know?
Yes, absolutely.
So they need to keep reading. Deuteronomy 16 and Uikra or Leviticus 23.
And the thing is, too, is that there's some out there that are being taught that the seventh-day Sabbath is, in fact, the true Sabbath, and they are to observe that day, but what they're doing is they're driving 50, 60 miles, leaving their place, leaving their dwelling. And we're told in Scripture, you know, that we're not to leave our place on the Sabbath. We are to stay there and rest in our dwelling. And then also, isn't one of the appointed times, or all the appointed times for that matter, aren't they what would be considered high Sabbaths? Now, isn't that a Sabbath day also, that we are to refrain from working and rest in our place?
Yes.
There are only three times during the year, three Sabbaths actually, three feast days, that young males over 20 years old were to make the journey to a designated place. But that's no longer in effect, because where two or more are gathered in his name, there he is. So we can be husband and wife, or two people that are together in the same area can meet, and his presence is there with us. So, but still, those are Sabbaths that we need to be observing.
Yes. I love it. I love it. So you experienced one denomination when you were being brought up, and you were probably exposed to these sacraments. Do you know what sacraments are in your mind? Do you remember the definition? I've got a definition here that is kind of universal for the whole, every circus division there is. It's a visible sign of an outward, they use the word grace, which is Hebrew for chesed, loving kindness. It's an outward sign of inward loving kindness that's some kind of a plasma that Ghostbusters might use. Anyway, it's especially one of the solemn Christian rites that it's spelled R-I-T-E-S, considered to be instituted by JESUS to symbolize or confer GRACE. The sacraments of the Protestant circuses, I'll use the word circuses, are baptism and the Lord's Supper. Well, anyway, the sacraments of the Roman Catholic and Greek Orthodox circuses are, oh, let's look at that. I didn't know they were going to list them. I bet you can't find any of these in Scripture. Baptism, confirmation, the Eucharist, which is a Greek word for thanksgiving, matrimony, penance, holy orders, and extreme unction. Wow.
Yes, I remember those.
Yeah.
I remember being taught those, but a question that kind of always came to my mind is the teachers of those dispensations of teachings, actually, they can never fully gain or accept them, especially the one of what they call matrimony.
Oh, yeah.
So why? I mean, how could they? I mean, they're exempting themselves from that by taking the order of a priesthood. So they're it's kind of like shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, they've instituted their own priesthood. There's a scripture that defines what what the priests have done to his Torah, and he's very upset with it. And it describes the Catholic circus too, because they're not obeying his Torah, but he wants them to obey him so they'll learn how to love one another and peace will be on earth. I mean, if you want peace on earth, the first step is to study the commandments and then read Psalm number 1, and it says, very clearly that the one that meditates in his Torah is like a tree planted by streams of water. And all these things are not listened to. They think they're done away with. What was done away with, Dan, exactly? Do you remember what Hebrews 8 was telling us was done away with? It was replaced and it grew old.
It was the original Levitical priesthood.
Yeah.
And the animal sacrifices. That's what was done away with.
It even says why. It says that because the high priest died, and it had to be,
right.
It had to start, and certain things had to be reconditioned to a new priest, and that it's just crazy that somebody would see disobedience as being. I had a conversation with a Jesuit once, and it was online. I actually recorded it with his words anyway. not audio, but his typed words. And he was asking me if I sacrificed animals, because I'm one of the Nazarene.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He'd heard we have to sacrifice animals. We don't. The Torah of animal sacrifice, no longer, there is no more sacrifice. But they seem to think that they have a bloodless one on a body-shaped slab, like a sacrificial high priest in a black mass might do. They have, they used to have human sacrifices where they would offer a virgin or something on a slab, and now they're holding up a disc of the sun, S-U-N probably, it's some Egyptian thing. But this is nothing, there's no Passover every week. It's just once a year.
No, it happens once a year on a specific date.
Yeah. And we're not doing it. He is the Passover. And his blood covers our transgressions. But they think that they can do a bloodless sacrifice, which is not mentioned anywhere in the Word except through tradition. And when the Gentiles come from the east and the west and the ends of the earth, they're going to say, our fathers inherited absolutely nothing but futility.
Yeah.
But please wake up, people.
That's what we're trying to do, get people to wake up and think and ask these questions and find out why they are being taught the things that they're being taught. And I also noticed, too, that another thing that I was asked, actually, not too long ago, was, well, if you keep the feast days, then are you doing that to be saved? Because they were done away with. We don't keep them anymore. And they call them I think it was the beggarly elements, I think is in one of the translations, the old ways.
Oh, Galatians? Yeah, they're quoting Galatians.
Galatians, that's right. And keeping of special days and feasts and whatever. Well, what they don't realize, what the Christians don't realize is, no, we don't keep the feast days to save us. That's not the point. The point is to understand them and their significance. They're shadows of things to come.
Yeah.
The fulfillment, of the last three has yet to be established. We're waiting for those, and it helps us to understand the plan of redemption. It's the perfect way to understand it, because they are shadows.
Outlines, yes. And what do you...
outlines.
It looks. I'm holding up the telephone where your voice is coming out of, and I'm showing them how. That's why the distortion is happening. Anyway, I was going to ask you if you could, in one sentence, explain to the audience what Paul was talking about to the Galatians and who they were before they had converted.
Well, the simplest way I can explain it is the Galatians were pagans, or forest-dwelling people that believed in a lot of heathen rites, and they went back to their old ways.
That's it. The pastors are not clarifying what Paul was talking about. They're trying to point what his words were directed at to the Torah of Yahuah, instead of the pagan things like birthdays and weeks and days and special things that they had to, all those pagan events. And they're still practicing them. What do you think Valentine's Day is about? Fertility. What do you think the Bunny Rabbit Festival is about? Fertility. What do you think Halloween's about? Fertility. What do you think that broomstick is all about? And that flying over the corn? They don't have any idea. And all these symbols, they're all fertility symbols. And Paul would be enraged as if he had been scalded by hot water if he was running around in this world today. He would be screaming at the top of his lungs, saying, "What has happened? The fire is coming. What are you doing?" The earth is about to split open all around you, and lava is about to consume you. Don't you see all the prophecies about the day of Yahuah? Are you not being trained Malachi 4, read it. It's just impossible that this stuff is pleasing to our Creator. They know more about the rules of football and who's playing on both teams than they do about what Yahuah wants them to think and do.
Yes, that's very true. And why is it even in your what you would call fundamental Christian circles, why do you never hear Malachi 4 spoken of?
I don't know.
That's the message of that's the Eliyahu message for the last days. Remember the Torah of Moshe. It's not giving your tithe to an organization, but they always seem to quote that more when funds are running low.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know.